Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie. I'm here with my husband, Jim. It is Monday evening again, and we are here to talk about artificial intelligence. So the reason that we started this podcast to begin with, like a long time ago,
it's been about 3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years, and we have a whole 5 followers. But anyway.
We have more than 5.
Oh, okay, I'm just joking. But anyway, the reason that we started this podcast 3 years ago is because quite often you have so much information that you want to tell me and so much that you want to explain to me. And it got to the point where I was like, Jim, we cannot talk about AI 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let's do a podcast. And then you can just do this whole core dump in about a half an hour on Sundays. And then we've moved it to Mondays. So you can tell me what's going on. Like, what's the news and what's the latest?
And there's only so often for so long, you can pretend like you actually care about all this stuff.
No, I care. And not just that, but we do talk about AI more than just now. But now is that set time that you know that you're going to have a half an hour or a little longer to tell me all the greatest things that have happened with AI. So I'm going to let you start out by telling me a couple of the headlines that I know you've been really wanting to talk about. So let's start with that, and then we'll move on from there.
Well, as you and I have talked about before, you focus on the why, which is why you have so many followers on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I focus on the how, which is why I have no followers.
No one really, a lot. No. And you're right. People don't tend to want to know how it happens.
They don't.
They just want to know why it's happened.
They want to know why, and they want to argue about why. How is a lot harder to argue about.
It really is.
Because there's a lot of details. One of the things that we talked about early on, and anyone who uses AI tools can tell you, that this whole AI is taking over the world, AI is going to do all these things, doesn't use it very often.
No.
Because I think almost from the very beginning, I told you there's going to be phases that goes through. And one of the phases was trying to integrate it into the existing infrastructure. You're not going to throw out 50 years worth of computer integration, or more than 50 years. You're not going to throw all that stuff out and go, we're just going to get rid of everything. We're just going to replace it with AI. It doesn't work that way. So, and we've talked about wrapper companies. So this particular, it's an AOL.com. I didn't know AOL.com
It's still out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was an article in theirs. It was about Greg Brockman, who is one of the founders of OpenAI back in 2015. And he talks specifically about two things. Domains, and he mentions healthcare, require people to think about how they can get AI into their existing systems.
Yeah.
Healthcare, which is swallowing our economy, healthcare is one of those things where it's incredibly complex, generally doesn't work very well from an IT data perspective.
Right.
And so you can't just I think Maggie's having an asthma attack over there. Anyway, you can't really talk about healthcare and just shove something new in it and it just kind of work. Especially something as complex as AI. So he was saying it takes a lot of domain knowledge, takes a lot of time, which reinforces what I was talking about. He also mentioned something you and I talk about a lot, which is building better wrappers.
Okay.
The danger you have if you're a wrapper company, and I know they don't like that name.
But it's what they are.
The reality is, if most of what you do is provide a front end for a large language model on the back end,
right.
You're a wrapper.
Right.
If you're not doing anything that requires a specific domain knowledge, like in education, there's a ton of companies out there providing prompt engines. Some of them are even having little simple chatbots, like the one I built back in 2023. They're providing that as a service, and they're putting the pipelines in place to try to say it's safe for kids and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, they're still a wrapper company.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about that in this article, and that's why I liked it so much, is that he's, we all like to hear what we already believed in the first place, except from somebody that's smarter than us.
Somebody just validating or reinforcing.
Yeah, he just validated. So that was headline number one.
So I don't understand. So the headline is you have to have domain knowledge if you're going to make money in the future, and that wrapper companies are making a quick buck, but they're not sustainable. Is that basically what it says?
Well, it's basically what the headline was. It's not too late to build an AI startup. Okay. However, the real world integration of that is the hard part. And that's where the real money is.
Right.
I mean,
that's
it's generally
people give up.
What do we, every time we're doing a couple of conferences coming up soon. And one of the things that I tell people all the time, because usually when I'm talking, it's in front of a bunch of IT people.
Right.
And what I tell them is this is an IT problem. This is not
Nothing new.
anything new. You still got to create user accounts. You still have to do all those mundane things that you do for IT every day for everything we already use in it, whether it's a company or whether it's a school district. Basically, what he's saying is that still holds. AI is a unique integration challenge, but it's still an integration challenge. And that's the challenge that will make you wealthy and make your company sustainable, not just being a pipeline for or a wrapper for an existing language model. And the problem with being a wrapper also is that Google or OpenAI or the big three, or even Microsoft,
shut you down.
They can shut you down overnight. I mean, you can come in and go, oh, Google decided to do, and Google's already doing that because they've got so many school districts using their
already
their workspace
their Drive
products
and stuff. Yeah.
And I noticed the other day when I logged in, if you've got their Gemini, it pulls up a prompt page that looks just like these companies that are doing the wrappers for education.
Yeah.
Except it's also integrated into all of their tools.
Right. And they've already got it in
They've already
place.
got it there. And they've also got the most data of anybody in the world, which means their models are always going to be good.
Right.
So anyway, I thought the headline was interesting. That's why I brought it up. It actually was late August when this conference happened.
Okay.
But
so what's the other headline?
The other headline, which is openai.com. This one I really like. This is like just a day or two ago. New research paper about why LLMs hallucinate. Now, this is a long paper, and it's got a lot of math in it, and I don't think anybody really wants to read it.
Okay.
But what I thought was interesting was some of the stuff that I thought would resonate well with you and anybody who's been in the classroom, because we talked about on a previous podcast, if these tech bros that are making these tools would actually talk to people who've been testing humans for decades
right.
and have had to deal with high stakes testing and all that other stuff, they might get some tips on tools that they're trying to make them mimic how humans learn and how humans use these tools. And yet they don't learn from what humans already know sometimes. The first particular point, which I thought you would find interesting, which is, I'll leave that one to you.
I have glasses on. I can't see it.
Oh, we'll take your glasses off. You can read it.
The guessing game incentive.
Now,
so imagine that a student taking a tough exam guesses. And the whole thing is, are you going to penalize them for guessing? Or are you going to incentivize them for guessing?
Unfortunately, when they train these models and they do reinforcement training and things like that, they don't de-incentivize guessing. In other words, they encourage guessing, which is why we always talk about how they're so eager to please you. So a lot of the problem is that they say, if you don't know the answer, guess. Well, that's the definition of a hallucination.
Yeah, because you're just blowing sunshine at that point.
So you have to ask yourself, because you've taught kids this. If you're taking a high stakes test,
don't leave a blank answer.
Don't leave a blank answer.
Yeah, never ever.
Because if it's multiple choice
if
and
you've
there's
got
four
choices, there's 25% chance.
You got a 25
right.
Exactly. And so there are tests that de-incentivize you for guessing.
Right.
So there's a balance that they have to do to figure out, what's the best way to, should we let it guess, and if so, how much? The thing that I also thought was interesting was, and they talk about, the way they classify data and how if the training data itself, even if it's error-free, is still statistical, so it is going to generate errors. One of the things they mentioned that I thought was interesting was birthdays. They don't do well with birthdays, but they love guessing. If you say, hey, when was such and such born? Oh, September 30th. and then you look it up and it's not even close. So it loves guessing
Which
birthdays.
is why AI literacy is so important.
That is part of my point, is that it's so important. So one of the things that I was looking at was here, what did they determine was what you can do? What can you do about this? And so again, back to the humans high stakes testing again, they mentioned a crucial step being to modify the scoring of even the benchmarks that are being used to evaluate the LLMs that are not from the company that made the LLM, the language models. They're still grading them on a simple right or wrong. There's no reward. The models they're not allowed to express uncertainty. And so But
but don't you want it to though? Okay, it's like, we were
exactly.
talking about this earlier. If I ask a large language model, hey, when is such and such's birthday? Why would I not want that large language model to know I am 10% sure that it is this?
That's
or
one
I
of the
am
questions.
90% sure that it is this.
If you listen to one of our podcasts that we did almost 3 years ago,
Okay.
one of the things that we were both surprised about, because it's statistical, and one of the things that when you talk about statistics is confidence.
Right.
Statistics is all about figuring out,
what
it's
in
not
what?
about it's
what
not
is
about
what chance in what.
well, it's not about an individual thing. It's about how groups act.
Right. How confident are you that this is going to occur
literally
again?
Have confidence. You have confidence intervals. There's a lot about. Well, you can't do that with a large language model. In that movie, Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when they were talking about humor, and he said a joke, and he goes, "Would you like me to? I'm only going to allow you to do." He tells a really bad joke, and he said, "You want me to drop you down to 50% instead of 60% on your humor?"
Yeah.
It was about expressing how much uncertainty I'm going to allow. There's no way to do that.
So
for instance, one of the things I said was, if a question might specify only answer if you're greater than 75% confident. It can tell you an answer, but it can't tell you whether or not that answer is right or wrong. And it has no way of determining if it's right or wrong. There's no back filter that says, I know this is the right answer and I'm 100% confident. You can set a level for how much creative thinking it does, but that's not the same thing as how right or wrong it. Remember, it's always easier. There's a whole lot more options to prove the negative than the positive. If I ask you to prove something, like if I make a statement and I say to prove this is right or wrong, what you do in science typically is you look for one wrong. If you've got a hypothesis,
anything wrong makes it wrong.
And anything wrong makes it wrong, because there's almost an infinite number of ways to prove that it's wrong.
Right.
So anyway, this uncertainty, it's why it has a hard time saying, I don't know. So one of their conclusions was, beyond a simple I don't know, future models could be developed to signal uncertainty in more sophisticated ways, such as hedging their statements, omitting dubious details. So basically, it's a way for the model to give you what they call behavioral calibration. And think about what you do as a teacher. I mean, this is, again, a subtle nuance.
You walk into the classroom and you're always calibrating for behavior.
Well, not that kind of behavior. But how many times have you talked to a student's got something in front of them they're working on. Mm-hmm. They have no idea how to do it, but you've been working on this particular thing and they're stuck, and you say, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
what is your gut?
We were kind of laughing about this earlier. It's like, okay, if you're going to pick one of those answers, how confident are you in that answer? Are you willing to leave me a shoe? Are you willing to leave a shoe at my desk if you pick that?
That's because it's your way of trying to get them to go with their gut.
Think through it. But no, a lot of times you also, as a teacher, when you say calibrate, another thing that teachers tend to do is they tend to nudge. Just very slightly. What if you were to think about this from that direction? What if you take a step back and think of it like you're the kid and not the parent in this situation? So you're always like trying to bump them in another direction, just very slightly, so that they can then reach their own conclusions. Is that what you're talking about when you're talking about calibration?
That's part of it. I mean, part of it is also what you're doing, I think, when you're doing what you just described, is it's a way of testing their knowledge. Because gut instinct is really nothing other than you know enough to have a feel for whether or not that answer is right or wrong. Mm-hmm. Or at least enough to kind of nudge you in a direction. That's human intuition. Mm-hmm. Human intuition is a whole lot of learning and a whole lot of other things that we don't even really understand as to why humans have these intuitive feel for things.
Right.
We do a lot based, even scientists. I mean, there's been many cases where science went a direction because the scientist had a feeling based on something. You can rationalize it however you want to, as well. They just knew in the back of their mind, and they just, because they had the data, they were just trying to get it out, articulate what it is. And maybe that's true, or maybe they're tied into the universe in a way we don't understand. I don't know what the reason is, but that human intuition is something these things don't have.
Right.
And
never will.
Well, I don't know if they know. I can't say never. I don't honestly know what they'll have and what they won't. What I can say is they don't have it now. Mm-hmm. we don't have a clear path to get them to where they do. I don't even know how they're going to be able to give the confidence levels, because when you start talking about how these language models are trained and how these neural nets are programmed, I don't know how they're going to be able to tell you that one path through the neural net is better than the other. I mean, how do you gauge? How do you do it as a human? How do you look at things and kind of get a feel for them and go, I think it's that way. Yeah. Well, what you do as a human, except in education, they don't allow that as much as they used to. But in many cases, as a human, you just have to get your hands dirty. You have to pick a direction. You have to go that direction.
Celebrate the failure and go back and do it again.
Celebrate the failure and go back and try again. Mm-hmm. And I think this is all about how do we make these models more able to express how confident or not confident. Because I think as a human, we actually expect that. And if you're unwilling, if you confidently always give the wrong answer, what does that make you feel about that person? If you're talking to someone, and what do you call a person that you're talking to that always gives you confident answers, even though they're wrong a lot?
A liar. Honestly.
I was going to say politician, but anyway, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, that's kind of what you're talking about, right? So you want them to say, you know what, I'm not quite sure, but this is what I think. And these things can't do that.
They won't do it.
And what is it? Why is that important for us to understand? Because it means that if we don't do the digital literacy stuff,
AI literacy,
we've already seen it. You've talked to someone that runs one of our places at the school that's kind of a principal in one of our campuses, so to speak. And he was confident they weren't using AI. They were using AI. They were just using it so badly.
Right. For something totally different.
That they were unable to
use it for what it should be.
They were getting the wrong answers because they were using it so badly, and they didn't even know it because it was confidently giving them an answer to their questions. Right. And so he thought they did. He was like, "They're not using AI."
They're not. Yeah. If they were using AI, they'd be getting all these questions right.
They'd be doing a better job writing these papers. That frightens me. It doesn't frighten me that AI is out there, and it doesn't frighten me that students have access to it. Our unwillingness, because we're so busy arguing about whether we should do it, why should we do it, or whatever. We're not looking at it and going, they're already doing this, and we better train better.
I'm constantly, one of the things I'm constantly putting on LinkedIn is it's here. It's here. And actually I have a post that's scheduled to come out this week, I believe. It's basically, why is the middle not good enough? Why do we have to be one extreme or the other when it comes to AI education? Because the middle is where things happen. The middle is where things get accomplished. The compromises and stuff.
We've spent, I think education has spent so long being sanitized. And I blame everything on high stakes testing because I hate high stakes testing. But
Texas is getting rid of it.
Yeah, they're adding 3 now instead of 1.
No more STAR tests.
Yeah, it's great.
Now it's going to be 3 tests a year instead of the 1.
Yeah, that's going to be so much better. The only ones that's going to be better for are the people who sell access to the testing. The testing companies finally won the lobby they wanted. You know what? We need more tests, but we're going to call it less testing. We're going to call it less testing because it's smaller. Mm-hmm. What does it even mean, smaller? Does it mean instead of a 40-question test, there's a 30-question test?
You should be able to finish it in half an hour, 45 minutes instead of 3 hours, maybe.
If that test still decides whether or not you pass a course,
I think that's a big one. I don't know what they've decided about that.
If you're still grading the school and any type of rating or accountability is tied to it, then it's just still a high stakes test.
Yeah, I'm not sure about those changes.
No one's sure yet because they're going to write it incredibly vague. Right now, the testing companies are all writing their law for them, and they've passed their initial version of it, but they're going to get all the testing lobbyists are going to be out there. Here, let me help you rewrite that. And they're going to rewrite it to maximize the amount of money the testing lobby gets and minimize the amount of actual usefulness. But because of high stakes testing and because accountability and even the teacher allotment, all that stuff is all tied to this junk.
Yeah.
That means that, again, you can't get your hands dirty because you have to be able to predict the outcome. Mm-hmm. And learning doesn't allow you to predict the outcome any more than you can with a large language model. It doesn't predict the outcome. It gets an outcome, and it gives you some rating on that outcome, but it can't tell you if it's right or wrong. It can be wrong. We need to be teaching people that, and we need to be okay with that. Right. It's okay to be wrong. as long as you understand it's wrong and you move on.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, I went off on that one a whole lot longer than I intended to, but I look at this stuff going, yeah, duh. If you grade this way, you're going to end up with this outcome. Ask the people who have to spend all of their lives testing, and they'll tell you that if you're grading on a test, everybody is going to tune their stuff to do better on the test, and that's exactly what they're talking about. So we've got some stuff.
Yeah,
we've got some stuff coming up, and you've got a post.
Well, this was interesting for me because, as I was saying, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and a lot of times I post like not just real stories about what's happened in the classroom that have to do with the book that I wrote, or I'll see an article and I'll say, this is a great article. Let's talk about this. Let's look at what's happening here, what's happening there. But I also people will DM me. They will direct message me things that are happening to them. And so I had this one person direct message me about their class this year. And I asked their permission to write a post about it. And they were like, absolutely. When they direct messaged me, I thought that it was a one-off. I was like, okay, surely.
I thought it was a joke.
I mean, you literally thought he was joking.
I even posted that. I thought under your post, I even commented.
And so basically the post is about somebody who has been given 2 classes at the same time, one across the hall from the other.
Yeah, I liked your little, and my comment I made was the little guy, you did the little picture.
I did an image of 2 classes and somebody running, and they were supposed to be running back and forth, but instead the image turned out to look like they were like running away, which is basically what a lot of people are, like, leave.
My comment was he's either running to the bathroom or he's running out the front door, and I'm guessing the front door.
Right. So I posted about how this is what teachers are facing. This guy, he has 2 classes he's assigned at the same time. Basically, he has 45 kids that he's trying to keep an eye on, one in one room, one in the other room.
That's just wrong.
He's having to go back and forth. So I kind of went into multiple classes, specialized accommodations, resources that run out, because I know of somebody who started school this year and about 4 weeks in or 2 weeks in, realized that there was absolutely no copy paper that was ordered for the whole campus. And so they had to wait until September to get the copy paper in because they had forgotten to order it.
They forgot to order at the end of last year's budget.
Right. And so, this high stakes testing, so forth and so on. And I have 194 comments basically about, oh, that's happening here. Oh, that's happened to me. Oh, this is, and so it's like, oh my God, it's not just in,
it wasn't a one-off.
It wasn't a one-off. I mean, New Mexico, Canada, all of these other people are just saying all the time about how, I have 8 different preps. My smallest class is 45 kids.
I expect that.
Crazy.
Everything you just said, I'm not as surprised about. I'm not as surprised at classes being too large, all the preps, because I've seen all the preps, not 45 kids in a class, but I've seen all the preps. What really surprised me, because I thought I just didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was even legal, at least not in Texas.
It's probably not.
To have 2 classes across the hall from each other at the same time. And I made that comment, and some lady commented back, she goes, oh, she's like, Jim, not only is that real, it happened to me at our school. Now, I can say with fairly good confidence, I don't think it's ever happened at Atlanta ISD.
No.
I've been in there for 20 years. I would have known if that was happening.
And another thing that a lot of people were talking about was like, don't forget the career and tech teachers. A person said, don't forget them because they're also trying to teach the next generation or the next iteration of workers or the next iteration of people going to college on technology in the career and tech centers that was basically, created in the 1960s. And so they're talking about how they're, we always say that if we want kids to learn, we need to be teaching them with the cutting edge technology. And a bunch of people, came back about how that's, that.
Well, because we run we for some reason, sometime in the past, they decided to run our schools should be run like a business, which means you should streamline, cut costs, Well, guess what? You can't. Research and development requires a little extra cost, and teaching kids about something that barely exists or that doesn't exist or won't exist and trying to give them the tools to know how to handle that requires them to be at the edge now.
Right. Yeah. So here's one. I'm just going to read you one of these one comment. Just here to add that this is not fake. Okay. In public middle school, my kid was in a math class that had no teacher. The solution was to have the math teacher down the hall duck in and give assignments.
That's nuts.
The math teacher down the hall ducked in and gave assignments. And they went on to say the issue is bartenders make so much more money and work fewer hours than teachers. Even a dedicated teacher gets burned out when they can't afford rent, even working full time. So, I mean, there's so many.
But again, all of that, you're an educator. I'm an engineer. Engineer, you look at something and you try to boil it down to its basics.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at all the stuff that they've talked about and all these different posts these people are talking about, big classes, considering the fact that they keep trying to cut more and more money out of education, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Big classes make sense to me.
Yeah, you have to.
And old equipment makes sense to me because I've dealt with it myself. That makes sense to me. Every single thing we've ever talked about when it comes to education, I may not agree with it, but it makes sense. Putting two people on the same class at the same time is nuts. That makes no
one
sense
person with two classes.
That's what I mean. One person with two classes. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's like Hermione with the somebody commented.
Two or
Hermione
three
with
people
the
said they did the little
thing.
time turner. Yeah,
I
two
mean,
people actually said that. The whole point of my post is that the truth that no one wants to say out loud is that our education system doesn't run on funding. It doesn't run on policy. It runs on the guilt, the exhaustion, and the stubborn hope of teachers who care too much to quit.
Yes.
And
now, not every teacher. I see this a lot. Not every teacher is a great teacher. Not every teacher is in education for the lofty reasons that you talk about. But when I look at here at our school district, when I look at percentage wise, I have known teachers in the 20 years that were there because they just.
How many?
That's my point.
How many have you known in 20
hundreds
years?
Of teachers
in
20 years, and I bet
now hang on. That's our audience is going how many what? So what you were getting at is that you have known teachers who got into it because they enjoyed the fact that they only had 187 days on their contract.
They did, and they wanted to be off more.
Right.
I've known hundreds of teachers.
Yes.
We have
literally.
We have a couple of hundred now, but I've known all these. I can count on one hand.
I can count on one finger.
I can count on one hand, and I'm going to have a few fingers left over, but there's going to be more than one. Teachers that I would say were like that. Now, I have known teachers that they didn't get into it for that reason, but they just weren't very good at it. They learned that they were just not very good teachers or whatever. But again, even when you factor those in, it's still not a huge number. Most of the teachers that I've known, whether I liked them as a person or not, were dedicated to the profession. You look at the number of hours they spent, the number of their own dollars they spent, the extra duties as assigned they spent. And Llano ISD is actually pretty good about not abusing teachers in terms of.
Right. We try.
So when I look at all these other schools and they taught this, a lot of times I look at it and I think, there's no way that's real. There's no way. And that's what I thought about the whole one teacher, two classroom thing. I thought that can't be real. And one lady responded back to me and corrected me. Oh, absolutely. And you had 50 other people that posted that said, not only is that real, it happened in my school.
Well,
not
I had
only is that real, it happened to
190
me.
people who commented on it. Now, some of them were like, this is all politicians and teacher unions that are causing this problem. And I'm sort of going, Texas is not a unionized state. I mean, we don't have strong teacher unions and stuff.
I did not grow up in a state with strong unions.
Yeah. And
but
so,
people blaming everything on the unions.
But I also had 59 reposts where they reposted it with their own comments about how, hey, this does happen to us. This has happened here. This is happening here.
Anyway, it was interesting.
My question, and people are always asking me, well, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? So what's the solution?
It's not just about funding. I mean, it's too long because we're going to be out of time, and I want to talk about the stuff that that's coming up for us. But the solution, the first step in the solution, in my opinion, is attitude. When I grew up in this small town, my parents believed that teachers had their kids' best interest. They didn't say they were perfect.
Right.
My parents were very hands-off. Not everyone's were. But at the end of the day, they believe fundamentally that education is important. My mother dropped out of high school. My dad was an auto mechanic. He did complete high school, but he dropped out of college. They told me constantly education was the way to better yourself, the way out. Now, I think that higher education has broken that contract, and I think that needs to be fixed. But I also think you can't fix it by constantly berating teachers and the educational system. These people that are constantly posting how school was the worst, X number of years of their life. It's like, guys, it wasn't supposed to be perfect. Mm-hmm. You weren't going to summer camp. You were going to school.
Like, was it the school or was it you?
Was it your attitude? I mean, sometimes it is horrible, and people have horrible experiences and all that other stuff. You have horrible experiences whether you're at a private school, public school, home school, because you got humans involved. People have horrible experiences sometimes. But blaming, it's like everybody's got this target they've painted on schools as the problem that all of society has. Education or lack of it, I agree with lack of education being a problem, but you don't fix it by just constantly tearing it down. Right. They don't offer solutions.
Yeah, that's
the solution is we hate it. The solution is privatizing it. I remember when we lived in Florida, they were privatizing. Florida had 49th in the nation in education while we were there, I think, and they were privatizing education. They were already catching schools committing fraud because there was no accountability. They had a superintendent making $600,000 a year at one of the private schools. Again, no accountability. If you think lack of accountability is the way to fix it, then take it away from everybody. Anyway, let's talk about what's coming up.
What's coming up? I have been asked by the Department of Education to be one of 10 people that is going to be on a panel to discuss AI in education. That's happening tomorrow.
I think that's very cool.
I think it's very cool. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I got the invitation and I was like, well, I tell you my opinion. Well, hell yeah, I'll tell you my opinion because I tend to tell my opinion. Yep. So we'll see what comes out of that. I'm curious what it is that they're wanting to know. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Yep. I've been on several podcasts recently. I was just on one by Avid.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. That was a group. There were three people and myself. So it was 4 people total. It was a really great little podcast about my book and just about AI in the classroom, like the realities of what AI can do in the classroom to help teachers, not students, teachers. And I'm on a podcast tomorrow, 2 dope teachers and a mic. So
that's an interesting sound.
It's an interesting sound one, but it's a guy, the guy that does it, I think he was the teacher of the year in Arizona, I believe. He had gotten like the state educator of the year.
We've got a conference coming up.
We are going to be in Tech and Learning.
But the next.
I'm on the advisory board for Tech and Learning, and they have asked for us to come to this conference in Austin and present about Agnes and how we built our, we built the open source and the API access and our own toolkit. So
we didn't rely on somebody else to do it. I didn't design my own AI or my own language model. But I did pull together the tools, and then you and I piloted them last year.
And I'm very excited that we piloted it last year, and we are about to go ahead and roll it out. And we talked to the principal today, and he's excited about it. We're going to roll out Agnes to all 70 teachers on a campus.
On one campus. The campus we piloted at last year.
Right.
It's all teachers, and it's it's also going, it's going hand in hand with our mobility in the classroom. We're trying to make what we call reconfigurable classrooms where they can reconfigure the layout of it. We're trying to make it where teachers have more flexibility. And we want the AI tool to be part of that toolkit that allows them to be more flexible in how they run their classrooms. So we want to give them flexibility in a world that keeps trying to take it away from them.
Absolutely tries to.
And then
in October, I'm going to be at Texas A&M University.
We're going to be.
You're going.
I went there.
Yeah, you wearing the hat. I know.
I went and I got the ring too.
I know. And then in January, I know that we're going to be at UT Austin.
You missed the TCA SysAdmin conference.
Oh, in November, we're at TCA SysAdmin. So we have something pretty much every month. Now, the one thing that we don't have that we need is some more professional development stuff or some keynote stuff.
We'd really like to get into school districts. We're harping constantly on this need for training.
I don't think we charge enough.
Is that what it is?
I really don't, because I don't want to charge schools a lot of money because I know that budgets are really tight. But then when I hear what other people charge for them to go in and spend a half a day training somebody, I'm like, oh my God, I charge like a fourth of that. So I don't think we charge enough. Maybe I'll have to look at that.
Somebody told me once that if you want people to take you seriously, you have to make yourself expensive.
$1 million and I will come to your school.
The thing is that because you and I create a budget for a department, and you've also been part of the budgeting process for
campuses,
and you're looking at it going, you feel bad.
I feel bad.
You don't want to overcharge, but
it's like, have Maurie come do a keynote about how teachers have bigger fish to fry, or buy some extra textbooks. So I feel bad.
I had a principal who used to use that against me because he knew I felt guilty about things he wanted me to do, and he would be, well, I could take that out of my budget. I'm sure these kids don't need to go on a field trip to the zoo.
Exactly.
Or you could take it out of your budget, of course, is what he used to tell me. And he knew it worked every single time.
It's just not right. So
I know.
Anyway,
we're out of time.
My name is Maurie. I'm here with my husband, Jim. This is AI in Action. We talk about AI once a week.
Even the boring house stuff.
Even the boring stuff. So thank you so much for listening. We hope you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.